we are here to discuss the economic survey. First and foremost, when we say that we have to discuss economic survey, you tell me who prepares this survey.
Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance, sure. Yes. Any specific answer?
Economic Affairs Department, Minister of Finance.
Department of Economic Affairs. It prepares the economic survey. Now, many times you must have heard that survey is to be discussed. It is important for the exam, for pre, for mains, for interview, right? People tend to read it differently for different stages of the exam. However, this classification into pre, mains and interview seems more illogical, right? It seems to be illogical. The point is, economic survey, when you look at the document and its utility for exam like UPSC, right? First, I've gone through the survey, you have the copies which are marked. I consider this document first as an analytical document. In UPSC examination, when you go into the mains, right, for mains examination, every question asks for your own opinion. Yes or no? You are supposed to critically analyze. You are supposed to comment. Now, what is this critically analyze and comment? And then give suggestions also, point out challenges also, point out the problems. So you are supposed to look at the government schemes or whatever is happening around you critically, but still you have to be constructive. You are not supposed to criticize. You are supposed to critically analyze and be constructive. Now, if you have carefully read economic survey, you will understand that economic survey gives you the analysis of what the government has been doing, especially in the last 1 year, then after the last 5 years, and even it comments on certain policies of the government which we have been following right from our independence. Yes or no? So this is critical analysis of whatever the government is doing. Along with it, economic survey also points out the future course. It says what are the challenges ahead, right? And in this, while pointing out the drawbacks, it also explains logically why the government must have taken a particular step. And then it also gives us a suggestion, constructive opinion, what needs to be done. Anywhere in the survey, do you see a negative tone? Never, right? The tone is never negative. So this is a classical example how you are supposed to write mains. Critically analyze or critically comment. So you are supposed to independently, logically look at the issues, point out the flaws, but in a manner which is constructive, not just critical, right? Not just in a negative tone. So it is an analytical document, one. Second, when we look at the economic survey, it is a document which is visionary, which gives you the perspective or vision for the next, say, first 1 year, then 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or even 30, 40 years down the line. Yes or no? So it tells us that we want to utilize our demographic dividend. Now this demographic dividend cannot be utilized in 1 year. So it's a long-term perspective for the development of the country. Clear? So this is one angle of the economic survey. So it's a visionary document. Now when you study this visionary document, you tend to put everything that the government is doing presently, that the government had done in the past, and the government will do in the future in a proper perspective or framework that is given to you by the economic survey. Yes or no? So this is the utility that gives you a framework to analyze everything that is going around you and what the government is doing presently. Clear? So this is a visionary document. Third, it gives you food for thought. Means what? There may be many things that you have imbibed, many concepts that were shaped into your mind while you are reading newspapers or your core syllabus. Many a times we tend to have rather rigid opinions. These are also colored by our own ideology or our own thinking or upbringing. When you read the survey, it's a document which is very neutral. It is not a political document. Survey is prepared by academicians, right? Because it is so neutral, you tend to revise your own opinions also. It helps you understand everything from a wider perspective, right? For example, now you know what is going on in the country? Cow vigilantism. Yes or no? Now this is an issue you may be required to comment in mains or even in the interview, or otherwise also, not just from the point of your perspective. This is current affairs. You need to have your own opinion on this issue. independently, if you take a stand on this issue, it may be colored by your ideology. And that is what post-truth is all about, right? Emotion, passion and ideology. But the problem is, the point is, when you study this from the point of view of economic survey, it very logically explains that India is one of the largest exporters in leather goods. We have one of the largest population, or rather the largest population of cattle. We have a huge population which can act as labor. We have less participation of women in economy, right? So all this points to what? A great potential for development of industrialization, especially leather-related industries. Clear? Plus, China is getting away from these sectors, so it's an additional opportunity for India that India can utilize. Clear? Now, when you criticize this present step from this point of view, right, it is not ideological. It is very logical that this is the reason why India needs to look at development of leather industries. And then going forward, you can also attach current affairs to it. That there was an article that I went through that which said that if you continue these policies of cow vigilantism or ban on every this abattoirs or leather exports, what will happen? There will be a time when the farmers would be very scared to even keep cattle, right? So it will have a negative impact on our agriculture also. And now we are speaking about organic farming, right? So in this context, if you shape your opinion on the basis of these points, it can help you. Yes or no? So this food for thought also helps you revise your own opinion and build a perspective which is in consonance with the larger goal of development of country. Clear? Next, last but not the least, in which you are the most interested. This is an informatory document which gives you information. I have heard a number of times that people say that this is not for prelims. The survey, the second part is more useful for prelims. Maybe this is not very useful, right? I completely disagree, right? Because this survey will discuss a number of issues, will give you a foundation to understand each and everything that is happening in current affairs, so that that logic may be utilized while you actually answer even MCQs. And why I say that pre-mains interview distinction may be a bit inappropriate, because recently there was an interview, I told you in the morning lecture also, right, that Pusa RR16, the latest variety, that was asked in an interview very recently. So that is a piece of information which logically you would like to remember only for pre, right? So whatever you read, now Pusa RR16, if I say this is something that is useful for prelims, right? This is a new variety of pulses that have been developed in the country. But this is also important for mains, because if the question is on dryland farming, the question is on inflation related to pulses, the question is on India's role in technological development, science and technology in agriculture, you can utilize this information. Yes or no? Is there a limitation on not using it? No. So in interview also it is useful. You can quote this, if they do not ask, you can quote this as an example. So this distinction we'll keep aside for this session, and we will look at survey as a document which we need to study for our wholesome preparation for civil services. Clear? Next. How do we proceed here? What I'll do is, we'll follow the procedure of our polity, right? Kangaroo, right? Because if you try to read everything, it will take, it is not possible to cover the entire survey in one session, right? The most factual parts already have been pointed out in the survey. Most of you must have gone through the document that I gave you, right? The marked document. So it was, everything is very clearly marked about what is expected in the prelims. Clear? Apart from that, even when you read by yourself, there may be certain difficulties in understanding what is written and in putting it in the proper perspective, right? That conceptual clarity we'll try to work or build here in this session. Any doubt on this? Right? So the first, one thing I forgot to tell you, for survey gives you the line of government thinking, right? So that is the best opinion to, right? That is the most safest way to build your opinions. And anyway, for prelims, where you want factual information, you have to be like a swan, right? You just have to pick up what you want, right? Rest of the things can be put in a perspective of mains or interview. Clear? Next. So we'll start with pages. Clear? So I'll tell you the page number. How many of you do not have the copy of survey now? Do you not have the copy of survey at home? You have. Very good. So what do you thought? Nirmal Baba here. Survey lecture was a survey nahi aapna. So what is your point, right? Anyways, next. I'll tell you the page number, you shift on to that. I'll tell you what is important in that page number, right? So the first page number 5. The first chapter of survey is always very, very important because it gives you the complete perspective of the entire survey covered only in one session, one chapter, right? So it's like going through the entire survey in a gist. Chapter 1, clear? Now, the first bit of information at page number 5. When we come to page number 5, the first paragraph, right? First paragraph, what does it say? 3 major challenges. Right? They have given you, they have mentioned 3 major challenges in front of the country. Reducing inefficient redistribution, right? Just listen to the words. Strengthening the state capacity in delivering essential services and regulating markets. And third, dispelling the ambivalence about protecting property rights and embracing the private sector. Now, you know what? Why I pointed out only this paragraph in the beginning? This is the crux of the entire survey. These 3 points is the crux of entire survey. I'll explain in short. Anyway, we are going to deal it in detail when we come to the concerned chapters. But first, reducing inefficient redistribution. Why this point is important? Today, according to DPSPs, what is the mandate of our constitution? What type of country or state does the constitution build? It's the welfare state, right? Anyway, because of the inclination of our freedom fighters, right, and the initial leaders of the polity, they were tilted more towards socialism, and rightly so, right? At that time, the country was in a state where socialism appealed to them, right, to remove poverty and give opportunities to each and every person. Now, the point is, this context you understood? Now come to the present. Presently, you hear a lot about government working on technology, the government speaking about reducing subsidies, the government speaking about efficient and better targeting of beneficiaries. Right? You get this context, what the government is trying to do. Government wants to wipe the tear of the poor man's eye, right? Government wants to do that. But government is speaking about rationalization of subsidy, government is speaking about giving them opportunities, skills to redistribute, right? According to the agenda of welfare state. What is the difference? India of 1947 and India of today. What has not changed is the aim or goal of redistribution, right? At that time also, we wanted to be Robin Hoods, that we wanted to take the money out of the rich, the filthy and obscenely rich people that we believed, right, and who were criminalized, right, ideologically in our country. That is one part. And we wanted to redistribute it to poor people who are deserving, right, and needy. Yes or no? So that was in 1947. Today also, right, you heard, or this overhang has not completely gone away. This is the constitutional mandate, right, to redistribute the resources or wealth of the country evenly in the population, equity, social equity, economic equality, right? This is what the government wants to do. Is the government doing it efficiently? Right? Is the government doing it efficiently? No, right? Government has been doing it very inefficiently, because the survey even accepts that it is a very inefficient process. What do you mean by inefficiency? Either wrong people are included, either deserving are excluded, there are leakages, right? Or there are ghost beneficiaries. Yes or no? So this is the inefficient part of the redistribution. Clear? Point is, you should understand one thing. If you go to United States of America, right? If you go to United States of America, what do you see? you see that when a new area is to be developed for housing, first the plots are readied, roads approach, there is water pipeline, there is sewage line, everything, electricity, every amenity, right, basic infrastructure reaches to that location. Then houses are constructed, they are ready, and then the people move in. Right? If you reverse the order, you are in India. Yes or no?
Yes.
First people move in, right? Then they construct the houses, right? Then they bring water and electricity, akada, right? Then road is the last thing to come to that location, right? Why is it like that in India? The problem is, understand one thing, general model throughout the world, this is important, the general model throughout the world is, the state first delivers its mandate, it shows results to the people, and then it takes the priority of redistribution. Redistribution as a priority for the national government comes later when the government proves its efficiency to the people. Then only people can fund this agenda, redistributive agenda of government. Right? This is the reason why we know that only 3% or even less than that people pay taxes. Yes or no? What happened was, the state in which we were born, the country, in 1947, government could not take up the agenda of working on health and education or basic infrastructure when already a lot of people were suffering with food insecurity, they were staring at famine, there was poverty all around, health issues. So government could not invest into infrastructure at that moment, and the utmost priority was feeding the population, right? And then redistribution became the priority of the government. This priority continued till today, right? You understand? So redistribution is important, but redistribution would give justice to the required population or the deserving population only when it is coupled by the capacity of the state to implement it. This is what is missing in India. Clear? So this is the first point. Now all three are related. Second point is strengthening the state capacity in delivering essential services and regulating markets. Getting the point? So at that point, it is said that where are politicians wrong? It is said that even at that time, if we would have taken up building the state capacity, it would have taken a lot of time. Yes or no? It would have taken a lot of time and a lot of resources. At that time, the country could not afford to invest so much only in building the state capacity. It was a prime imperative to reduce the ship-to-mouth existence, right, of people. That is why redistribution became the priority one, and we had to accept the reality to redistribute through a system which is manifestly inefficient. Yes or no? When the system is manifestly inefficient, the government at that time could not exclude beneficiaries or exclude the people who did not deserve, could not include the needy because infrastructure was not present, and could not plug the leakages. But then we could not stop the schemes just by saying that this is inefficient, because that would have hurt the welfare state image and the redistributive agenda. What went wrong then? The government's priority was not wrong, it was a reality. But the problem was 1970s and 80s, that where we could have worked on strengthening the state capacity, we did not do that. Clear? So this was the problem, that there should have been a time when the country should have focused on building the state capacity simultaneously with redistribution. That is what is happening now. When we speak about the jam trinity, this gives the government the ability to redistribute efficiently. Clear? You understand? So context clear to it, right? Next part, third is dispelling the ambivalence about protecting property rights and embracing the private sector. Clear? Whatever we discussed now, it has a third compounding factor. It is the attitude towards private players in the country, right? Because of the experience of the freedom struggle or the initial years of our independence, private property and profit has a very negative connotation in our economy. Do you agree?
Yes.
Right? Businesses are demonized even today. There is a very valid reason for that. Because social justice and the motive of profit do not seem to overlap. Do you agree? Social justice, the agenda of the state, and the motive of profit, corporate agenda, they do not seem to overlap. Should it always overlap? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Right? It should not always overlap. How is it possible? Right? But then should there be no profit? Is profit so bad? If we just turn around the logic 180 degrees and for a moment we start thinking, why is profit criminalized or demonized? What's wrong if people are rich? Why do we call them filthy rich or obscenely rich? That is the terminology that is used. Why is profit so demonized in our society? I'm not supporting capitalism, but I'm telling you one thing, right? If there is, that logic works, even in a mixed economy, the logic is valid. That if there is no profit, why will the people work? Right? And if there is no profit, if there is no economic expansion, why will from where will the funds for investment come? How will there be employment generation? From where will your taxes come? Who will fund all this redistributive agenda? Getting the point? So we have had a very big hangover of the initial demonization of the businesses and the profit motive. State always considered them as something that is criminal. Yes or no? And not only state, it is the public psyche. That is the reason when the recent Prime Minister, right, certain decisions were taken and then the opposition blamed them by saying that it is so good ki sarkar. What is the problem? That is what the Prime Minister said. What is the problem if people wear suit good? Is it not good that people become rich? What is the problem? Why do you want to keep the people in poverty perpetually? Right? And this legacy of a state which is Maiba and the people who are poor and needy, and then the state borrowing from the rich and becoming the Robin Hood, right? To give or redistribute among the poor. This is Gandhian legacy. And the Gandhi that I speak about is not the father of nations, sir. You understand, right? So the problem is, this is a legacy of a particular party where they tried to keep, right? Where this redistributive agenda was given a very different framework. Point is, now the state has started realizing that if the state does its functions very nicely, if it invests into its own capacity, if it gives skill to the people, if it allows people or incentivizes them to perform, maybe it is a better way of pulling the people out of poverty, and that too with dignity. Because when you redistribute without work, it robs the person of dignity that the Constitution, Article 21 gives. Yes or no? Right? So a better way would be to give them employment, to give basic amenities, give them skills so that they become independent in their economic agenda or economic domain. Clear? Any doubt in these 3 points? So this is the central theme of this survey, right? So this is page number 5. Next, on the same page, there is 1.18, right? It's a very interesting point. The thing is, in India, we have seen federalism. We see federalism. So different states, linguistically formed states, they have been competing, right, in different spheres. The paradox is, there is competition in all spheres except governance. This is something that has come out very vividly out of this survey, right? That competitive federalism is seen in most of the spheres. Only it is vividly absent in the sphere of governance, in the strengthening of state capacity to deliver results, right? That is why when we discussed, or someone brought out, the Gujarat government, the then Gujarat government brought out the Gujarat model, right? Other states criticized that model, yes or no? And then even to the extent that the Chief Minister of Bihar is saying that our model is better than your. From what angle we have to understand, it's a big puzzle. right? That how the Bihar model was better than the Gujarat model, right? But the point is, this is very new. Before this, before 2014, right, or this emergence of this Gujarat model term, did you ever hear any such model? The state is competing in governance and showing a way forward, and then claiming that this is the best way to develop the people and provide opportunities. Never. From independence till now, we never have had such a competition. But then there was competition for everything. Everything else. The states competed with respect to resources from center. The states competed with respect to projects that were launched. Yes or no? So states competed in everything, but they did not compete in the sphere of governance. And what explains that? Strengthen hote? No, why they did not? Why this governance question never came up?
Bureaucratic storm.
No. What was the reason? That never there was a competition between the states on the issue of governance.
There was no accountability.
There was no accountability. People's participation in elections was on the basis of issues which were not based on governance. Yes or no? People voted on the basis of religion, people voted on the basis of caste, people voted on the basis of language or their own concerns, right? Maybe there are many political leaders now also which may be elected without being accountable for what they did in the last 5 years. Yes or no? It's possible, right? And if you go to a state which is backward, this is more visible, right? Because the people are not aware, right? So it's a two-way affair. Accountability is not just, it doesn't come automatically from the state, right? It is a result of civil society, the awareness among people asking and seeking this accountability. But then the point is, this may not happen unless the population is educated, right? So ultimately, the responsibility falls on the shoulder of the state. That state have to provide these facilities. Then people, once getting used to a particular level of basic amenities, would question the absence elsewhere. Yes or no? Clear? So you understand this point? That competitive federalism is visible in all arenas, but it was distinctly absent in the field of governance. That was something that was very striking in the Indian developmental model. Clear? Next. Certain models are given here. You can just refer to them later for your preparation. Next, page number 7. When you come to page number 7, now understand one thing. There may be a disjoint or disconnect between the 2 points that we discussed because we are jumping, right? Now the issue is, we come to the issue of China. What I've marked up there is, in the right side, it is written for China there are at least 2 difficult balancing acts with respect to currency, right? Domestically, a declining currency prop up the economy in the short term. See, so you understand what is the issue of China and why it is important for India. China, you know the history that it has been growing at a double-digit rate for more than 2 or 3 decades, right? So, wonderful rate of growth, right? China has a wonderful rate of growth. What has happened is, this growth was dependent on the export-led growth model that China had, plus the surplus population which was skilled and so low rate of wages, right? The third factor was the artificial devaluation of the yuan that the Chinese government used to do. Yes or no? Currency devaluation was one of the methods where China shielded its export-led growth model. You understand? Yes or no? Right? Export-led growth model. What happened after that? What happened in the recent past was China wanted its currency, because of the scale of its operation, China wanted its currency to be included in the SDR basket. Now you cannot do that unless your current currency comes to a realistic exchange rate with the other international currencies. So China had to readjust and rebalance its economy. But then what we saw was, from a double-digit growth rate, suddenly there was a crash to 6.7. Indian growth rate has also suffered after 2008, but it was not such a drastic drop. now also rather we are increasing in our growth rate, right? So what is the difference between India and China then? Chinese suffered a crashing, right? A crash or a rapid decline in their growth rate. What was the reason?
Demand was less.
Globally, export-led growth will suffer globally if the global economies are in crisis and there is no demand. Plus, there is a limit to how much you can devalue your currency, right? And now when China is saying that we want our currency to be a part of SDR, and now the context, what we see here, the context is because of the increasing rates by US Fed. Right? Recently, you must have seen the US Fed is increasing the interest rates. So all the dollars which were invested throughout the globe in various emerging economies is going back to US. So China is in a situation where dollars are leaving its shores, right? And if dollars leave your economy, what happens to your currency? It depreciates. Simple enough. If dollars go out from your economy, your currency depreciates, right? So now China has a scenario where the currency is depreciating, dollars are going out, and in this scenario, growth rate has already suffered. So whatever actions China takes, it is in a fix. It is given here. You can just see a declining currency prop up the economy in short run, but delay rebalancing. What China used to do till now, right? Devaluation. In short term, it helps your economy because devaluating their currency is good for exports or imports? Exports, right? So for keeping up the export-led model, if you devalue your currency, it helps you in the short run, but in long run, the rebalancing or readjustment becomes painful. This is the one part. And second, internationally, allowing the currency to weaken in response to capital flight risks the creating trade frictions. Means what? There has been a talk about currency wars. Yes or no? So in this case, when the dollars are running out of your shores, right, and you want to devalue your currency, right, what will happen? There will be a currency war because in this global, in this stage of not so good global economic growth, all the countries want to keep up their markets, export markets. Yes or no? So there can be a scenario where every country tries to reduce or devalues their currency, and it gives rise to a currency war. That is what we do not want, right? This is something that is bad for the entire global economy. Clear? So this is the scenario that is explained here. Next, 22. Page number 22. They're just given certain points on the right side, right? I just wanted to point out that sometimes the question will be indirect also. What they are saying here is another more modest proposal worth embracing is procedural. Stand still on new government programs, commitment to assess every new program, right? And then commitment to evaluate and phase down the existing programs that are not serving their purpose. Eka Shabda, in one word, how do you describe this approach? This is called. This is very close to zero-based budgeting. Yes or no? Have you heard of this term? This is very close to zero-based budgeting, right? Where you evaluate the programs on the basis of their past performance, and if you see that they are not keeping up with their target, you will just not hesitate to close down the programs. So this is something that the survey is suggesting, that now we are speaking about rationalization of subsidies and properly targeting and then minimizing the number of schemes, right? There is also a talk about universal basic income which will replace everything or may replace everything. So while doing this, government is saying, what they are saying is no new policy should be brought up, and each and every existing policy should be rigorously evaluated. And then if you find that it is not performing as per the expectations, you just shut it down. Clear? So this is very close to the concept of zero-based budgeting, where it is like that only. Zero-based budgeting, every year you have to reevaluate every scheme, and if you see that it is not performing, you will just close it down. Clear? Next. So this is about 22. 23. Now, if you see here, Like if you see here, page number 23, you can exactly see, right, a very important finding of this survey. What's that finding? Take an example of Manrega, a scheme, simple scheme, or PDS, anyone. Say Manrega. It's a demand-driven scheme? Yes or no? It's a demand-driven scheme. Logically speaking, where in India, spatial extent, now we are studying the spatial distribution of schemes and their uptake, right? Spatial distribution, where should be the maximum demand for Manrega? The poorer states or the states like UP and Bihar? Yes or no?
Yes.
These should be the states where the demand for a scheme like Manrega should be highest. Right? Because they have surplus labor, unskilled, that too, unskilled and semi-skilled labor. So the demand should be highest. Survey has pointed out a very important finding where it is saying that what is seen is exactly opposite. The scheme and their uptake, the implementation of the schemes and their uptake is very good or very strong, where in the states which are already doing well, states like Tamil Nadu, states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, or even Andhra or Karnataka. What is the reason?
States, institutions are more capable of utilizing the resources that are given.
Yes, that is the reason that the schemes which are for the poor, we are not saying that the states like Maharashtra, Gujarat or Andhra, they are very rich states. Poverty is a problem everywhere, and unemployment is seen in different quarters of the country, even in the well-to-do or well-off states economically. However, these states are in a position where they can utilize the scheme, make the scheme accessible to the people, right, as per the mandate given by the law. Yes or no? So this is the state capacity which determines the final uptake of that scheme on field. This is the same reason why a state like UP or Bihar, you see the implementation of these schemes is below the potential or below the requirement, right? It is not that the government does not have programs for a poor population or such empowered action group states. Yes or no? Originally they were called the Bimaru states, right? And how do you remember the states? I told you. Tell me the names.
Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan,
Come on, is this the way you answer it? In one go, you should be able to tell me the 8 names. And it is very simple. The 3 states which were divided, plus you have to add adjoining states, 2 adjoining states. So you have Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, you have Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, you have Bihar and Jharkhand. Jharkhand च्या खाली तुमचं Orissa and then Rajasthan, close to Madhya Pradesh. Done. अभ्यास एकदाच करायचा, only once, but nicely, right? So these are the 8 empowered action group states. So these are the states which were at the focus of many of the government programs. Now we take the example of NRHM. The scheme when it was launched for what? Making healthcare accessible to people, affordable to people, acceptable to people. Yes or no? Available to people, poor and needy. What did the government of UP do with it? A huge scam, where there is no infrastructure or the state capacity to implement. What happens is the twisting, distortion of the scheme. There was a big scam in UP on NRHM. Yes or no? Right? So the point is a very crucial one, that the ability to utilize programs or mandate of laws or programs of government which are for social sector depends on the ability of the scheme to have that infrastructure to implement it in the first place. Otherwise, the awareness among people is anyway low, right? And if the state capacity is weak, the mandate of the scheme can never be fulfilled. Clear? That is the reason why states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, they are better at implementing schemes rather than the states which need them the most, need these programs the most. Now, can you answer this question? What is the closest term to this phenomena? Where the better off people go take away all the benefits that were supposed to be for poor. What is that called? What is that term where the government frames schemes for the poor and the better off people go away with the benefit? Inclusion. What is that effect called? Have we discussed or not? So what is that effect? I told you. It's called the Matthew effect. It's called the Matthew effect, right? That the better off are in a position to, are better aware and in a better position to utilize the funds. So this is what is seen as at the level of states. Clear? So this is what is pointed out here. And they have not pointed out only at the level of states, they have also pointed out at the level of districts. Right? The poorest districts are the poorest in utilizing the funds. Right? The better off districts are in a better position to implement and utilize the funds. Right? For the poor population. Next. Next is page number 24.